everybody? Welcome back to Deadlock and Load, episode number 4. We are back with some great things to talk about this week. My name's Cryptic. I'm here with BSJ. What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm good. Other than whatever that was. But yeah, I feel like this week's been fun for Deadlock. I was playing a lot of Warden, and
Nice.
it's been fun learning a new hero. And I know I'm kind of spoiling what we're going to be talking about at the beginning of the podcast today, but the whole process of learning a new hero in this game has been really fun every single time I do it. And I've been arresting people this week.
Yeah. Just running around with the badge of the law.
Yeah, what have you been doing in your Deadlock games?
So I actually just decided not to play ranked at all this week. I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen after 1 week of ranked when, with everyone kind of just try-harding their lives out right now. But I was like, hey, I'll play it easy, chill, kind of see what's going. I'm currently calibrating a second account because I can't play with any of my friends. So, we're doing our best out here.
Smurfer.
I have to, man. I'm currently blocked from playing with like 8 of my friends right now.
What that means, right?
We're all too good.
No, that your friends need to get good. That's what that means. Oh wait,
No, we're all too high MMR. Like, we have
oh,
8
it gives you the
people in
alert that
MMR
like you
queue.
can't play in high. Yeah, we got that with like a guy filling in our party today.
Yeah, we have literally 8 people in the high MMR queue that I play with regularly, and so if 3 of us are in a lobby, it won't let us queue. So we now are all making new accounts so that we can try and play together until they get rid of it.
Isn't that just gonna be stomps until you get back to the same problem?
I may have finished 4 games in less than 10 minutes yesterday.
Well, you're single-handedly deflating this scene's player count, so
I apologize a little bit, but
just
it's
saying.
okay. It's going to put me in Smurf queue very quickly. I know it exists, so we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. I'm also just like learning new heroes, and I'm going a little bit easy on people. I'm not trying to like curb stomp them or anything, I'm letting people play the game. I'm just like eventually. The problem is some of the ones that are ending is like in the beginner lobbies. It's not because I'm crushing people. It's just people abandon the game like crazy, like all the time. Like in 3 of the games I played, there was like an abandon within the first minute and a half, just like out of nowhere. Like people are like, "Oh, I can't play now," and leave, and it's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not punishing abandoners quite hard enough, I think. I think as long as it's still happening, that tells you that the rules need to be tightened. And like I had 2 games today, I think, out of like 7 where there was somebody that left. And that's just, it should be something that you see like once a week or something, or like maybe once a day max because somebody had an emergency. But yeah, that is an unfortunate part of Deadlock right now, and it is what it is for now.
Super fun game. I think a lot of people are going to have fun learning it, but the main topic of the day, like you said, wanting to learn new heroes. How do you go about it? What have you been doing?
Yep. So I opened the wrong web browser there. So I feel like for me, there's a balance. Like the first question I've always kind of wondered is like, how often should you learn a new hero? Like, what is the right amount of heroes to learn? I even had somebody in chat today say like, shouldn't you, or isn't it a better idea to play a bunch of heroes like once or twice to get a good idea of how the hero works? And I definitely think there's a balance. Like becoming a one trick has its risks because you don't understand how all the other heroes play. You kind of learn the game through the lens of just that one hero, whether they're really strong at team fighting or strong at farming or strong at ganking. It's like you're only really going to learn that limited playstyle. But also, if you only play a hero a few times, then you're not really going to understand the intricacies of the hero. So I think for me, I've been doing about 1 hero a week, approximately. I'm not like only sticking to that, but that's about what I'm doing. What's like the general thoughts of your approach to learning new heroes?
So mine's been a little bit funny. To be fair, a lot of the heroes that I've picked up and learned, I have learned because I didn't want to play against them. So a lot of times there were situations where I was like, man, this hero is just bodying everyone in my lobbies. And I wasn't really sure why, so I was like, all right, well, this is going to be the week where I just queued this specific hero, and I learned them to figure out why they are ruining all of my games. Or at least, like, crushing my teams and stuff. So, like, that was where I originally learned to pick up Ivy, I did the same with Kelvin for a bit. 7 was always a hero that I played, but I just hadn't played him in a while because he was kind of hot dog water. But now he's good, and so I got back to playing 7 a little bit. Shiv was similar. So it's like a lot of these heroes that I've played up in practice has been mostly because I see people like kind of getting owned by them, and it's when I'm stacking with friends, it's just easier for me to like play the hero or learn it and hope that it doesn't just run over my lanes.
Yeah, so I mean, like, two of the questions I had thought about was like, what even makes you decide to learn a new hero in the first place, and also how do you choose the hero? So like, I feel like for me, there has to be like an alarm go off of some sort where it's like, I guess in your case, yours is more reactionary to like, okay, this is what we're losing to, and I'm kind of curious about why, so let's explore that. It's also frustrating to lose to it, so I always think it's more frustrating to lose to something you don't understand than to lose to something you do understand.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what you're saying. I feel like for me, it's more like, what part of my game am I working on? And it's also what hero... Okay, so for instance, in Dota, I think of like different items that are tough to use, like Armlet, and it's like I want to learn to use Armlet, so I practice this hero. So like in this game, it's like recently I'm like, I want to learn better to like take good team fights and use Majestic Leap. So I picked up Warden. Like that was my idea behind picking up Warden, was to have like a better idea of proper team fight selection and Majestic Leap usage. And so it's like I've got in the habit of using a lot of different items based on the heroes that I'm picking to play and the items that they usually buy. It's kind of like, you know, if you don't pick heroes that use their gun predominantly, you're never going to learn to use Vampiric Burst and stuff like this. So for me, it's usually like time to learn how to use that. And I feel like, okay, I've learned enough about this hero. I've iterated on it enough. I have a good idea of how to win with this hero. I'm consistently winning, and I feel like I understand why. That's usually the signal to like move on to the next thing, and then I decide the hero based on what I just said. So
I kind of like that. I think for me, the initial decision on which heroes I wanted to learn were just the ones that I thought that looked cool. You know, like looking at the kit, conceptualizing, I was like, man, this looks fun. So I played a lot of Abrams because I came from playing other third-person MOBAs previously, of being like, okay, like the heroes that I enjoyed playing were sometimes the carries, but just getting in the face of heroes in this game seemed really kind of unique compared to how it played in other games. So yeah, Abrams was just like very chill. Like for me, I was like, this is exactly what I'm gonna play. And then I was like, all right, time to learn a carry, and I played Infernus because I think Infernus has one of the most well-rounded all-around kits in the game.
Yeah, so you talked about that last week when we were talking about the tier list. You think he's just like the perfectly balanced hero of what he offers to the game, and jack of all trades.
I think he's really cool. I think there are patches where he's been overpowered for sure, but I don't think it was like exclusively an Infernus thing. It was an item thing that he could take advantage of, and there were several other heroes that also took advantage of it, but you know, Infernus I think was just one of the most played heroes in the game generally. So he kind of gets a little bit more attention. But yeah, I like him. I think he's really fun. When it comes to like picking another hero, I think for me it wasn't entirely just like what am I losing to. That definitely influenced my decisions, because there's a lot of heroes that I look at that I see people lose to, but I just have no interest in playing. Like Bebop, I have zero interest in playing this hero. I just know I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to have fun. So it's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time learning, because he is also a specialist hero. And it's just like, I could sink weeks into learning Bebop, but I'm not going to enjoy it until like the build changes or they modify his kit or something. And then maybe I'll go back to there. But I think for me, the next hero that is on my list is finally just going to be Pocket, because one of those things that the hero's been so good for so long. I don't think he's going to ever be a bad hero. He fits into pretty much any draft, and he is fun. He is a fun hero to play. So I think he's going to be my next target.
Yeah, I mean, we have to hold our breath in terms of what hero we're going to pick next, because the patch does come out 2 days from now, the balance patch. So we're going to have to figure out, you know, are they going to gut Pocket one more time? Because, like, I feel like this gut took him from, like, best hero to, like, third best hero. And so, you know, I feel like then 7, like, before last patch was bad, and then he's good again. So for me, just mentioning like how do I decide which hero to learn, I guess another factor is, oh, that hero got a significant buff, and I usually have like an idea of like I have a vision of how I would like to use this buff, like, oh, that buff to this item or the buff to that spell, and I get to build around his ultimate rather than his first spell or something like that. I mean, even for like Wraith, I guess like I felt like I had to relearn the hero because after they nerfed her cards a bunch, I feel like the big item that she bought, the Shadow Weave, felt much more underwhelming than in the past. Like, I could burst pretty much anybody with the patch where the cards were 1.5 scaling, but then when they nerfed it all the way to 1.1, I feel like there are heroes you can't kill, and that just makes the build not as enticing, and they also nerfed improved burst as well, so it's just fascinating that a hero that you've already learned can drastically change based on the items that are good, as well as maybe what ability they build around. And that's something that is getting tweaked pretty consistently every 2 weeks, and sometimes even in between in the case of like Shiv and stuff this week. So, yeah.
I mean, just look at Great Talent, right? Like, this hero has just been getting constantly messed with because he has like almost no identity in the game, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do with him. Like, is he a bullet damage hero? Is he a spirit damage hero? Like, he theoretically should be hybrid.
I know this is a Deadlock podcast, but when you say this hero has no identity, they keep fiddling around with him, what is the first Dota hero you think of? Go.
I mean, Ricky, but I don't know if that's
dude, mine is Clinks. Dude, mine is Clinks,
okay.
Dude. They have
the Invis heroes.
But they've changed Clinks like 9 different times in terms of the abilities and order. I guess they've done it to Ricky as well. I just think it's really funny because, like, I guess every game has this to some extent. Like, some heroes, they just can't really find the niche in which this hero accomplishes its job in the game. And I feel for Great Talon, the problem is they like nerf the spear build and buff the bullet damage build, and now both of them are mediocre. And it's like,
yeah, and bullet scales with spirit damage, so you still have to build them, but you're now like have to be a hybrid hero.
Yeah,
I don't know. I like the idea that they're in the way that they're. I like where they're going with it because I think he would be a very cool hybrid hero. Because let's be fair, the sit on the other side of the map throwing charge shots and hawks is not a cool interactive way to play the game.
I love getting domed
really
for like
stupid.
800 damage from the first spell and from across the screen. No, I mean, it's what I love about Deadlock is that I play McGinnis, for instance, and everyone's building this ult build, and I'm like, I tried this, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't work for me. So I'm gonna figure out like I'll do a lot of damage, but I won't win games. So then I'm like, I'm gonna try a build that is more my style. And I feel like there's so many different interpretations of heroes. There's sometimes where, like when Wraith Shadow Weave was broken, like that is just objectively the best build, no reason to try anything else. But most cases, I feel like people, like I see melee shivs now, I see like all types of like random builds that are just different interpretations of the hero entirely. And like brings me to one of the questions we have in the talking about these new heroes is what's one of the biggest mistakes you can make trying to learn a new hero? And I think that's overly trying to imitate other people. I think that's a good thing to do for like 3 to 5 games because you have no fucking clue what you're doing anyway, right? But like whenever I'm building the hero at the start, I just take a guide and I'm like, okay, I understand this guide is playing around Warden's ulti, and I'm going to play with this guide for like 5 games and just ask myself, why is he building these items at this time? What purpose do they serve? Do I think, at least? And how do I feel about it? How does it line up with what the game looks like? And it could be bad for me to build the same items as some top-ranked player because in his games, everyone's farming properly, and in my games, nobody's farming properly. So it's like that alone, even if I tried my best to emulate what he's doing, maybe it wouldn't work, right? So I think that one of the biggest mistakes is to over-imitate and to kind of, I don't want to say brain dead, but just kind of mindlessly copy what you think you're supposed to do rather than kind of like using it as an opportunity to like explore and be curious about like what this hero, what you can do with this hero specifically.
Yeah, I think for me, like before I learn any hero, the first thing I do is I go into the hero demo, like the hero showcase area. And I just look through some builds, kind of get an idea of like what I like. The problem is the builds are still so overwhelming with how many options there are, which is kind of, I think that's something that's a little scary. So I think I agree with you. It's like you want to try not to imitate someone too much for the first, like, but the first few games that you're playing this hero, like get a build guide sorted out. Because if you don't, and you're like, I'm just going to try, I don't know, Viscous is a good example. I'm just going to try Viscous. You've never played the hero and you jump into a game. Your build is going to be a complete mess because there's so many different ways to build Viscous. And so if you just try to jump in a game and you're already overwhelmed by the hero's kit on just what to even do, how to press your buttons, how to even aim their gun specifically, it's just you're not going to be paying attention to your item. And then when you go to the shop, you're going to sit there for like a minute looking through the items like, which one of these actually helps me? So get a build, something like put into into a guide and kind of get an idea of like why, and then just go like into the demo for a moment and just play around with the spells and figure out how they kind of interact and work. I'm not saying like go in there, spend an hour, like go spend 5 minutes even, right? Just doing some basic things, figure out how the spells work, because if you don't and you try to go learn this new hero, you're going to be incredibly overwhelmed. Like this game specifically, Deadlock, is just an incredibly overwhelming game with the amount of stuff going on at any time. Don't make it harder on yourself,
I mean, I used to be like this in regards to Dota, and like one of the biggest mistakes I used to make that like I feel like people are making still, and they also will do it in Deadlock because like you said, there's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of information. Is it like if you really ask yourself, is it really that hard to spend 5 or 10 minutes kind of critically thinking about what build do I want to try? Let's fiddle with the hero a bit. People will play a hero for like 20 hours without doing that at like any given point, and it's like I used to do that too. Like you just spam the shit out of a hero thinking like I'll eventually learn it, when in reality you could have like warmed up with 5 or 10 minutes and made this process take half as long. And that 5 or 10 minutes saved you hours. And it really does work that way, though. I feel like there's like a distaste for practice and like warm up. And I don't know why that exactly exists. I feel like video games maybe people think of them as more fun, but I also think anything in life that is fun, most of the time you have to prepare for it in some way. Like even if that's like have a night off so that you can go party or whatever. It's like everything that's fun has to be kind of prepared for, and that includes video games. So
yeah, I mean, getting stomped in Deadlock doesn't feel good. Getting stomped in any game doesn't feel good. I for some reason it's less painful in Deadlock. I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe it's because it's still new to me and it's fresh and it's fun. But give yourself the best chance you have when you go to learn a new hero. Always, and don't give up. This is the other thing too. I would say when you're learning a new hero, you're gonna lose a lot of games, like especially because there's not like hero specific MMR in this game. I know there's been some talks of it. I don't think it exists realistically, because if you're gonna go into a game and you're playing a new hero for the first time, you're gonna be playing against people that are the same skill as you on your mains, like on your best heroes. And so you're going to get rolled in lane. You're going to have a bad time, like trying to figure things out, but you need to power through it, because if you just give up, like you're never going to learn kind of the intricacies of all the different heroes, and you're going to end up just kind of one-tricking. And I don't think this is a game you're going to be able to one-trick for very long. They are adding a lot of heroes, and it just doesn't play like these other games that one tricking is very popular in. Like you actually will have to be able to play multiple heroes, especially when draft comes out and ranked is a thing eventually.
I mean, basically, you're like the summary of what you just said for me is don't be afraid to mess up. Like fear of failure is like one of the most limiting factors, I think, especially in this day and age. With I could go into this topic forever about like social media and stuff, where you see a bunch of perfect people with like edited pictures and like showing you something they've worked on for hours upon hours, and you think, why can't I do that? And I just feel like that is a topic of discussion probably for 10 podcasts from now. But I feel like the fear of failure, I'm already kind of seeing it when like if you judge others for failing, you also judge yourself for failing. So what I mean is the person who's flaming the guy trying to learn a new hero is the same guy that like is afraid to learn a new hero. Do you know what I mean? Like those two people are the same people. So or those are the same person. So yeah, I mean, I will say, when there's a ranked mode, I did just get done. You saw the game, and I've had a few games like this. I don't feel like my teammates should have no idea what they're doing when I have a semblance of an idea of what I'm doing. So it seems like the rank system itself is in, like, beta or whatever. Like, they have to figure out exactly how to calibrate it properly. Obviously, in the first week, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it is kind of strange because my unranked games seemed more competitive than my ranked games, which is strange. That, to me, makes no sense. So, like, if they're able to match people in unranked based on similar ranks, I feel like that should be the same deal in ranked. But we'll just have to play that out and kind of wait to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, right, there's so much going on under the hood here from Valve. Like, we don't really know how they're running the ranked calibrations or deciding, like, the matchmaking lobbies. Like, they haven't released any of that information. With Dota, we know it's Glicko, right? It could be a hybrid of something like that and something else, but we'll see, right? They're going to run the tests here in about 4.5 hours, and that will be the first rank distribution for everyone who's done their 7 games this week. And I have a pretty good feeling a lot of people are going to be upset. A lot of people have been trying really hard are going to be like, what? I'm only this? You know, that's what always happens. But it's going to be fun to see how things kind of shake up over the next month in terms of, you know, where the ranked, I guess, algorithm goes and how much of how well this test works. I personally have a different opinion on ranked generally. I don't know if it's for this podcast episode. I think it should be removed, but
you don't think there should be ranked at all?
Not right now. I think it's like 8 months away. We should put ranked in. I don't think we should have ranked right now. I think it's generally a bad thing for the game, but it's, again, a whole other topic. We could talk about that, you know, after people get their medals, and then maybe more people will jump on board with me being like, yeah, man, this ranked is really dumb. Like, I don't know why we have this. My medal should be way higher.
I mean, here's my topic of conversation that I'll say briefly, because otherwise we could probably talk about this for, like, literally ever. I don't mind that there's ranked in the game right now, but maybe I even talked about this last week. I'm not sure. But when I saw that there were small windows for ranked, I'm like, nice. That means I'll play, like, right now they moved the window to 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. I'm like, okay, I'll stream from like 11 till 4, play like 5 to 6 regular games, and then I'll play 2 or 3 ranked games. And that's like a nice balance of a little bit of warm up, a little bit of experiment, then go show what I've got in ranked games. And I was like, that's kind of cool that they have like a limited window. A lot of people, apparently their response, at least streamers, were like, I'm going to have 6 different accounts in 4 different regions, and I'll just region hop from, like, so I get to play ranked 24/7. And for me, I'm so like,
stupid.
I'll be honest, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, just play.
So dumb.
The makers of the game obviously didn't want you to only play ranked. Like, they put a 6-hour window on it. I think they're kind of thinking what you're thinking, which is like, okay, let's kind of like, maybe this is a bit early, but let's throw it in there and see what happens. We don't want to like completely limit creativity, and we don't want to like have this be the all defining, this is how good you are at the game. But
yeah,
I think the 6-hour thing, if people stop being dumbasses, is fine. Like, I personally think it's fine, but you know, people will be people. And as one of my favorite sayings from my friend goes, people have a good way of ruining every good thing by making it bad. So that's I think it's a good thing that the community might ruin rather than saying they shouldn't do it. That's my TLDR.
If they keep it, I think it's fine as long as they introduce at least a duo queue for ranked, and I want separated solo and party MMRs. 100%. I think they need to not do a combined single MMR system for all of ranked. I think if we're gonna do that, introduce a party MMR system, allow there to just be a party MMR queue, and let people have fun with it. And then get rid of the restrictions on just solo non-ranked matchmaking, like the fact that, you know, certain people can't queue together or high-ranked players can't queue at all. It's a little bit annoying. So we'll see. I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes this week specifically.
I don't like the idea of separating solo and party because the highest level players will solo, period. Like, that's all they're going to do. And I feel like when you create this system and you allow people to just solo, that's what they're going to do. And I think the solo queue is like the bane of what matchmaking has become in all of these games that have it. Like, I think my summary, I kind of talked about this, but like what happens is if people care a lot about their ranked, people are going to learn the skills that they need to learn to gain rank. So if you tell me that, what I'm saying is if there's a solo queue MMR, because of the norm that's been set in place, people at the highest level are predominantly going to play solo queue. How do you win in solo queue? By being very selfish and playing for your own game. You don't really have to learn how to properly play with your teammates at any point. And that's what people are going to get good at. They're going to get really individually skilled with like no proper team coordination. That is what happened in Dota, and the only exceptions to Dota are the people who are actually on professional teams. Those are the only exceptions. So I personally really hope they never do that. But like I honestly think we can like segue that by saying that's the discussion for next week, because we're going to see what they do. Because we're going to see what they do, right? Because they have the week. Maybe they're going to announce like the iteration. And so we can kind of spoil it for you guys and say like, that's going to be the topic of discussion for next week is what, let's see what their impression was after the first week of ranked, and what do we think the future is going to hold, and do we think this is good or bad? So I like that. I think you and I could probably discuss that for 10 podcasts worth.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I'm down. I'm down for that. That'll be fun.
What I love is if you ask 10 people that question, you'd probably get 10 different answers.
Easily. Yeah, easily. It's everyone has like their own experiences in ranked from various games, right? And I think Deadlock's pulled a lot of people from different games that do it differently. So
absolutely,
it's going to be interesting to see how they try to accommodate, their philosophy with the philosophy of these other, games and their design of, how they do ranked and how they try to approach it here. Already it's unique, right? Like just out of the get-go, this is an incredibly unique approach. So we'll see what happens. I'm down to talk about it more next week for sure.
Let's go.
I think that'll be a great topic.
That will be for sure. Are you ready to update our tier list?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Luckily there hasn't been a lot of changes this week.
Okay.
Which I wonder if it has something to do with ranked, but
so I feel like I am gonna mess this up somehow. So let's just try. So I'm gonna have to probably. Okay, so what happens here? If I move you over here. Okay, I know what I gotta do. Give me a second here. Give me a second. I'll fix this for next week. Don't worry, guys. This is just Brian being a noob. Okay, we're good now. Don't worry. So nice. we've got the tier list. So this is our tier list from last week. There hasn't really been too many balance changes. They did minorly nerf Shiv.
Yep.
But aside from that, this is purely, I would say, a feeler. Like, did anything happen in your games that changes your opinion on any of these heroes? Why or why not? I don't even think we should go through each individually. I would say, is there a change you think needs to happen based on what you're seeing here?
I think Kelvin might be slightly better, and Geist, I think, is potentially S tier. I think those are the biggest changes. I think Geist specifically is very good.
Okay, so remember, people watching live, they see this, but for people listening, so last week we had Geist and Kelvin at the top of B tier. So you're saying that you think Lady Geist is all the way up in S. What makes you say that?
So there has been a couple builds that have come forward. We knew her spirit builds were good, but we just weren't really sure like how good. The Mystic Reverb on Max Malice has turned this hero into an absolute monster. It is a permanent slow, it is constant damage, and you cannot get away from her.
What's the cooldown on Mystic Reverb?
Mystic Reverb, I actually don't have the game open right now. I can go look, but it's low. It's very low.
So I was just wondering, because that's like a 3-second cooldown nuke. Right.
Yeah, it's very low.
Are people like rushing that as their like first big item? Is that the build?
It's not like it's the first 6K item for sure.
Okay.
I mean the first tier 4, but it's like I'm pretty sure every other Malice procs it, so you just can't get away. Yeah, 6 seconds. It's a 6.2 second cooldown, but obviously you can go like reduce cooldowns and stuff on her. You get She's incredibly good at wave shoving. Like her bomb build is always really good. You always max bomb. She farms really fast. She's ridiculously tanky. I think she's really good. I think
Okay.
she might be probably one of the best spirit heroes in the game right now.
Okay. I guess like for me, I'm gonna put her at the bottom of S, and I also want to comment a bit because I think we're also trying to talk about these heroes sometimes theoretically, and I still want to make sure we lean into what's been happening in our games. And so I do agree, Kelvin has been having way more impact in my games than I anticipated. Like his like good Kelvin players, I'd put him probably middle of A. Like on the other hand, I feel like Mo and Krill, like every single Mo and Krill in my games, like sucks. Like I just feel
Dude,
like
I kind of agree.
Like I feel like this guy's probably in C. Like we had him middle A. Like I'd put him top of C. Like I think he can be played properly, but like for me, I think this hero is like buy 12k gold. He needs a Phantom Strike. Like that for me, 12k souls. Like I feel like every Mo and Krill I look at just doesn't have this item, and I've played this hero a lot. Like I've played like 20 games of this hero, and when I built an early Phantom Strike, I owned. The only exception is if I'm really far behind. That's like the only exception is if I'm really far behind. But otherwise, you just can't really ult people. And there's so many like pockets and Viscuses and Yamatos where if you don't instantly ult them, they just don't die. So for me, I put Mo and Curl in C. And then I would bump Wraith down to like mid A personally.
I agree. I think she feels a little weaker. I agree. We had her in S this last week, but I think she's definitely kind of more in the A tier. I'm down for that.
Yeah, I feel like she's solid. I feel like okay, so let's name these tiers a little bit. So just S, I would say, is generally strong, like / broke.
Very strong.
Like
very strong, yeah.
I would say A is like super reliable. Like these are just like you're gonna do solid on these heroes. Like if you're decent at them, they'll do a good job. I feel like B is like specialists / like
if you can make them work.
If you can make them work, yeah. If you can, I like that even being in the description. So and then like C tier is like, I would almost say, what would be a good description of C tier? It'd be like
the C tier is kind of like the heroes that it's a lot of work lots of work but like low impact. Like heavy effort, low impact.
Yeah, high effort,
like
low reward. I would say like low reward / impact. Yeah, and then I'd say for D is like I hope you know something I don't.
Yeah, just D for dog, dude. I don't know.
D for dog. Heroes, there you go.
These heroes suck ass right now.
I will say, somebody in my party was building melee Vindicta. That was some shit. It worked somehow, but it's hard to know in party queue if when we win lanes really hard if it's actually good. But I have not changed Vindicta out of D tier, the dog tier, for that reason. Is there anything else in this tier list that really strikes you as wrong, or your opinion of the hero has changed?
No, I still think Viscus is the best hero in the game.
Yeah.
So that one I stand by. I think this hero is absurd. He's going to get a massive gun nerf this week, 100%.
I think Viscus, Shift Pocket are a solid top 3. That's the 3 we got.
Yeah.
I personally think 7 can probably go down to like top of A or bottom of S.
I think he can go bottom S. I think a good Lady Geist is scarier than a good 7 right now.
Okay.
For sure.
And based on my experience with them in pubs, I would like to move Dynamo down to B. I know his
despite
potential.
Him being the best hero, it's just.
I think Dynamo's potential impact is like game-winning shit, but also in like my solo queue games, you don't really get to use Dynamo very much. Like meaning like how often do you see the 4-man communicated black hole with follow-up damage? You know, it just doesn't really happen.
They just need to buy a refresher, Majestic Leap, and
of course,
Warpstone, but they just don't do that in your pubs. So I don't know how many times I've played it with a Dynamo who I look at his items and it's like we're at 30,000 souls and there's just no refresher because he went gun build for some reason, and I'm just like, okay, well, I also don't like using my ultimate ability.
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like gun builds and spirit builds are mostly viable on every hero. But then the question is, wouldn't you rather somebody else on your team that isn't Dynamo have gun damage and you be a Dynamo that's black holing them, right?
Exactly. And it's the same. You see the same thing with Kelvin's a lot of the time, right? Like, this is a hero that is probably one of the, I would say, is the best support in the game. And certain games, you're like, all right, I can get away going massive spirit damage, grenade build. Some, like, in the past, you could get away with gun build, but he's still someone who just owns the game when a good Kelvin is playing a support. It is absurdly strong.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree. I think that's where like the skill and understanding of the game is going to start manifesting itself at like the highest level, is when we see heroes that, yes, you really can get away with almost anything in this game, but there's almost certainly an optimal balance of where these heroes fit in the game. And I don't think it's nearly as cookie cutter as a game like Dota, where, like, you know, Anti-Mage is a carry and something like Crystal Maiden's a support.
Oh, yeah.
But there are heroes that strictly function optimally because having one or two supports on your team in terms of the team fights and like the items they're buying is really nice to have. So, and it's like, if you're against Wraith and someone's like, how do you counter a Wraith with Curse and Shadow Weave? And we were like, you group up. That's how you counter it. And so, like, if I'm Wraith with Shadow Weave and I'm dealing with a Viscus who's just cubing whoever I go on, and if the Viscus just gets rescue beamed if I go on him, then, like, what do I do? You know, I don't know what to do. But the one complaint I'll say about right now is, you said Viscus's gun is going to get nerfed. I do believe innately that if a hero has strong survivability and their gun is even remotely decent, like, that's what they did to Kelvin, right? They just nerfed his gun because the old Kelvin build was just glass cannon, lucky shot, and then dome somebody.
You just dome them and kill them, yeah?
And it's like, cool. Okay, you're forced to 1v1 me, I'm healing, nobody else can do anything, and I'll just kill you. So then they nerfed his gun. So I feel like Viscus is annoying because he can build gun damage and then just use cube and ball as ways of, like, getting away from you or, like, disengaging. So that to me is, like, something I think they probably don't like in their game. Like, let's just allow a hero to go glass cannon items because he has two abilities that keep him alive and his gun will just do everything. That to me is probably not what they're going for.
It's just too good for the macro game as well. Like, the fact that this guy can solo push a walker and then, like, a 4-hero rotation comes out and he reliably survives.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part about this hero that's also just understated. Like, he'll just walk down a lane, take a walker in like 4.5 seconds, and then he gets ganked and he's like, ball, and just zips away. And you're like, all right, cool.
Okay, here's my question. Here's the theory then. Do you think, so remember how in Dota they used to have the split pushing problem of illusion heroes? So what they did was they made illusions do far less damage to towers over time. I was watching Mikkel's stream, and there's apparently a Russian Abrams player whose entire gameplay is to run down lanes as Abrams and make you gank him with 4 heroes, and he will not stop. Like, he will just runs at walkers. That's his entire gameplay. The guy obviously is in the top MMR bracket, so it must be somewhat working. And, like, I saw him in Mikkel's games like 3 times in a row. The guy was like 3-20 every single game. I'm not kidding. And so what I'm proposing is, do you think that they will ever make it so that, like, generally tanky heroes do less damage to towers? Or some version of balancing a hero around that, like Viscus really annoying to gank is 4, so 20% less damage to towers for Viscus, something like that.
I hope not.
You hope not? Okay.
I hope not. Yeah, I actually think there is something to be said about playing the game in that way. I think right now a lot of the community, especially in the North American queues. I know it's not as much in the EU queues, but in the North American queues, people just AFK and they just hit creeps. Like, I've been looking at damage breakdowns after my games to see kind of what my team is doing, because you can see like the distribution of their entire game's damage between, whether it be troopers, jungle creeps, whether it's objectives or heroes. You can see the percentages. And I'm having people on my team who like 70% of their damage is jungle creeps, 60% of their damage is troopers, and they have no hero damage, they have no objective damage. And you're like, all right, well, that's just not how you play the game. Like, I guess you could argue like one person's at least pushing waves, but a lot of it's like they're just catching a wave at the walker and then going back to the jungle or something. So I think people are just going to get better at being able to play the map and realize how they should be playing the map, but it is taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to take people to do this.
I'm just laughing because that is the exact same complaint in Dota about the NA region, and in my games I feel like nobody's hitting creeps, which is the exact same complaint about the EU region in Dota. I think that is so. I can't
tell you how many times people AFK farm creeps.
Dude, I played 9 ranked games, and I haven't had a single game where I felt like my team farmed too much. Maybe one guy, maybe one specific guy, but I have had so many games where I'm like, is anybody gonna clear these waves? Like, what's happening? So that's really funny. I mean, obviously, there's a perfect balance of how much you should farm and how much you should fight, and the lower skill you are, the more you will deviate from that theoretical perfect balance. But to conclude our tier list, I'm pretty confident with what we got. Unless you have any other changes. Do you have anything else you'd like to tweak here?
I think I'm okay with it. I don't think there was a lot of changes this week, and I mean there wasn't a lot of changes and updates, but I think we were pretty close to, like, when we looked at this last week, theory crafting, what we felt was good. I think Geist was the one that I was mostly just like, hey, it might be really good. And it turned out to be absurd. So, yeah, I think that was the only real change that I felt like needed to happen.
Yeah.
Now that you talked about this Abrams play, dude, I'm going to go look up this VOD. I'm going to just monkey brain down lanes and see how it goes. That sounds hilarious.
I mean, I don't know what his build is. I think he maxes his 1, I'm pretty sure. And I like 1 and 3, and they're just like,
yeah, I was like, I have to imagine 3's in there. All right, either way, I'm gonna try it. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So that's the build. That's good for our tier list. I guess my question is, so we have people listening. I don't feel like we should repeat the tier list out loud every single time. So maybe we just we're gonna figure out a way for people listening on the podcast. We're gonna maybe provide you guys with a link to our tier list, something like this, so that we can
put it on our streams in the video descriptions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, if you guys want to hear it, if you want to have us repeat the tier list out,
let us know.
Like, comment and let us know. Yeah, so we can at least get an idea of what you guys prefer for the audio only listeners.
Yeah, because we're getting this on Spotify, right? So yeah, it's like one of those things where I think it's annoying if you're watching us live to hear us do that, but let's hear from you guys. Please just let us know, because we want to find a good balance to appealing to the live viewers as well as the people who are just listening. But yeah, that's it for today's tier list. And we'll always be updating it. And next week's probably going to be a big update because of the fact that a balance change is coming in 2 days. So let's go ahead and go back to the main. Perfect. I nailed it. So yeah, man. I was going to say we always conclude our podcast with a what did we learn this week? I feel like I went first last week. So what would you say you learned this week?
All right. What I learned this week. This one's kind of like a little bit of a meme, but also just, I think, kind of relevant. I think farming guides by content creators are killing my fucking games. I think that is what I learned more than anything. There has been so many like content pieces coming out this week of people being like, this is how you can like farm on these heroes and get like 100,000 souls in 30 minutes. And you're like, wow. And then you like get that person on your team who's trying it and they do absolutely nothing. So a little bit of a PSA, I guess, to people. You don't need a lot of souls to have a lot of impact. So I think those types of things have been ruining my games a lot lately. I think maybe disproportionately. But yeah, overall, this week I think there has been a massive increase of just AFK farmers, and I think a lot of it is due to people trying to replicate their favorite streamer who had like one really sick game they popped off on, and they had like, oh my god, this guy farmed for like 40 minutes and then he melted a whole team. And I think people are getting a little lost in the sauce on that one. But I think that's what I learned this week. Don't try to imitate your favorite streamer or build guide, you know, do what's best for your game.
Now, what's really funny about this is because I feel like last week we had similar learnings, and so I've been listening to an audiobook that's talking about AI and how we trained it, and like over the years how we've basically learned what the best method of getting machines to do what we want them to do. And at one point they basically thought at the time the best method was imitation learning. Just show the AI, hey, this is what I want you to do, now go do it. And they ran into so many problems because, like, if the AI doesn't understand why you're doing it, then in times where things go wrong, it's gonna lose its shit, basically. And basically what you're saying is, if you're not as good as these players and you try to imitate them, that you're going to be useless because your games don't look like theirs. So for me, I guess I learned a lot this week based on that book, but also kind of comparing it to my experiences of like, how do you learn properly, and how do you make sure that you don't just do what you're doing, or what you mentioned, where you're like, I'm just gonna try to get 100,000 souls in a 40-minute game and carry the game that way, when in reality that's like a pipe dream at best, in the grand scheme of like your average game. So for me, what I really learned is like, I want to use an expert's opinion to like shape a framework for how I'm going to play this hero. It's going to be like my logical starting point. I'm going to trust that they've come to this conclusion through like a lot of games. But then I'm going to spend my time while I'm building their items, playing the hero based on feel of what I think the hero works with. And that was the entire subject of what I kind of thought was like a great way to talk about learning heroes, is just overly copying. So for myself, I feel like I even further honed my way of learning heroes, and I myself feel like I was even trying to copy too much. Because you kind of want to be humble and say like, this expert knows more than I do, but it's not arrogant or like, full of yourself if you just believe that you have a good idea of what you think you should be doing, and it's okay to not be correct. Like, it's okay to not have like the perfect build. If it's working in your games and you're winning, fantastic. Like that's the whole goal, is to learn how to win in the games you're thrown at. So playing more for getting better rather than playing to have the perfect answer every time has probably been my main takeaway from this week, going off of what you said. So
I mean, I actually agree. The thing too that a lot of people don't realize is like there's a dozen games where it doesn't work, and then it's the one game that it pops off and you're just like, time to make the video. We did it. We got the YouTube content coming out, And I think that's the other thing. Like, you don't see, you mentioned earlier, like everyone's posting on social media and stuff, like the things that go well. No one ever posts the things that don't go well. So be careful, when you see like a guide that's like, dude, you guys can do this every single game. Just do this. And you're like, that's not going to be how it works, guys.
If you saw my McGinnis guide from last week, I showed my game history. I said, look at how hard this hero is to understand how to be useful on. And I just showed like going 4-11 on my first 15 games. And then I was like, but after going through the trenches, I have understood how to lose really well on this hero, and this is how you lose. So I built items around not losing that way, and now look at this, I'm winning, and like here's how I'm winning. Like, I think if you're memeing about a build and there should be some like fucking disclaimer in there that says, I tried this build 16 times and I gave you this one funny game that you get to enjoy, but it ain't gonna work. Like, there's definitely some things that are meant to be your entertainment value, and there's other things that are meant to actually teach you. And I feel like it is on the onus of the content creators to like help their viewers and their demographic like distinguish between those two things. But once again, that's like another topic for episode 19, I believe. So
we'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah, we'll get to that one eventually. So without further ado, I think I've said what I need to say for the learned section of the week.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think we've talked about what we wanted to cover this week for the most part. We have a cool topic already set up for next week. We'll be going heavily into kind of rank philosophies and, some of the updates Valve will be making. But big announcement for those of you who don't know, we do have a YouTube channel live now for Deadlock and Load. And we will have all of our episodes being uploaded to there. And our Spotify channel will be going live either today or tomorrow. It's very soon. And we'll be getting all of the recordings uploaded there as well. So if you guys want to check them out, if this is like your first time seeing the episode and you're like, well, where's the other ones? They're going to be there now. You can finally go binge watch or listen to all your previous, episodes of Deadlock and Load. But I'm excited, man. We've been working on getting these things up and running for the last couple of weeks, and we finally did it.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I have some reliable commands in the Twitch chat that you guys can always come to, whether you're a Spotify listener or a Twitch chat viewer, to make sure it's easy for you guys to follow that stuff. So we'll make sure we have that set up in the next couple of days. And we're looking forward to the ease of access for the Deadlock and Load. So pretty hype. Looking forward to moving forward with you, bud. And looking forward to moving forward with you guys as well as we go through our journey of learning a new game, enjoying it. And I feel like, we say it time and time again, but this game really does feel like a new Christmas in the gaming world. It feels like what a lot of shooter players or MOBA players have kind of been waiting for. And it scratches that itch, and, let's scratch it together, platonically.
Okay. On that note, thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week for episode 5 of Deadlock and Load. Have a wonderful night.
And now for my favorite part of the podcast, where I get to end the call with Ricky and kick him off. See you later, nerd. Okay.